Hi, my name is Joe Salmon. I'm in the Intro to Criminal Justice class. Um, I'm here to talk to you guys about the living conditions in the prisons. That is what I did my research on. Well, I'm going to start off with what do I mean by the living conditions, and what I mean is the physical characteristics of the prison facility or cell. That affects the inmates that are living in them. So any kind of effects, health effects, specifically health effects. Now, of course, this brings to question, and people are going to ask this question, well, why is this, important? They're criminals, and they got themselves in there, so is it really that big of a deal whether or not we care about the living conditions of the prison? Since they got themselves in there to begin with, they should have to deal with it. Yeah, and that's true, I guess. But you got to remember that they are human beings too. We can't treat them like they're dirt, because they're not. They're human beings. Some of them made mistakes. A lot of them are in there for pretty minor charges, and a lot of them, like our teacher Aaron, do not have a whole lot of choices growing up. They're kind of sucked into that whole lifestyle and end up in prison, and that's a whole nother discussion. But anyway, they deserve to be treated like human beings. And so what I'm going to start off with is pretty much the physical aspects of the prison cell. And most prisons are 8 feet by 6 feet, and they can anywhere from 1 prisoner to 4 prisoners live in these cells, and most of the cells contain a toilet and a sink, which is mounted on top of the toilet. And you got to remember though, like for example, I'm living in a dorm. My dorm room is 12 feet by 12 feet, so that's pretty much half of my dorm room. And a lot of kids who live in dorm rooms complain about having a roommate. Well, try living in half the amount of space with 3 roommates. It's a bit ridiculous. And on top of that, you have a toilet and a sink in your room as well. And a lot of these people are trapped in these rooms or in these cells for anywhere from 12 to sometimes 23 hours in a day. And they're trapped in their bathroom pretty much. And there's, they don't have anywhere else to go to the bathroom. They go to the bathroom in there. They wash up in there. Since they're in there for so long, these facilities are not cleaned very often. So that right there is a health hazard. There's not a lot of cleaning going on. And one guy in particular, his name is Scott. I saw a news story about him. He ended up committing suicide because the condition that he was forced to live in his cell. He claimed that there was water on the ground 24/7. There was, his pillowcase smelled, there was bloodstains on his sheets, and he had the same towel for 6 months that was never changed. And that's pretty gross. Most people definitely would not put up with that, and he himself did not put up with it. Like I said, he ended up committing suicide, and that's, he wasn't in there for, anything very serious. He was in there to serve his time for a year and a half, and he ended up killing himself because he couldn't deal with the conditions. So we got to take care of this. So you're living in a condition in a cell like this, and diseases get caught, and germs grow like crazy in conditions especially like that. And you got 4 people living in there, since most of our prisons are overcrowded, which is a big problem. But so one person catches illness, and the 3 other people in the cell are pretty much doomed. They're going to catch it because they're all in such tight quarters. And so now you've got 4 people sick. Well, the whole prison's overcrowded, so now that disease is going to spread fast through the rest of the prison. And now you've got a whole bunch of people sick. And now what? Okay, well now you're supposed to take care of them, send them to the infirmary or medical, whatever it is, get them help, right? Well, not necessarily. A lot of the healthcare systems and medical staff is very, very underemployed in prisons. Most of the time, they have 1 nurse on duty, and that's for especially for overcrowded prisons, that's a bit ridiculous. You need prisons are very, violent and dangerous places to be, and there's going to be someone needing medical attention at all times. You can count on that, and to have an undermined medical staff, that's just not right at all. It's absolutely stupid, really. And so someone gets sick, or they get hurt or stabbed or whatever it is, and they need to go see the doctor. Well, 9% of the time they get put on a waiting list. Doesn't matter how severe it is, it could be an emergency. They're still put on a waiting list, and they may have to wait hours, days, weeks, whatever, until they even get to see a doctor. And what one of the problems is, like I said, they're still human beings, guys, and they should, even though they're criminals, they deserve the same health care that we have access to. We can go out, we can find whatever health care we need, and they can't leave, so that health care should be brought to them, or they should be taken to that health care, and they're not, and it's not right. It's completely against their rights as human beings. And so the big question is, well, what's the problem? What do we do to help this? And the big problem, which is the problem with a lot of the issues in the correctional facilities anyway nowadays, is the overpopulation. The prisons are overpopulated. It's just that. Why? I personally think a lot has to do with the war on drugs. I've done a lot of research on that, and all of the mandatory minimums and all of the racial discrimination that goes on, throws people in jails for petty charges. It just has to be looked at and revised, and we need to start being realistic with the mandatory minimums for all these different drugs, and not necessarily if they're an addict, I don't think they belong in prison if they're caught with drugs. I think we need to set up programs that gets them helps them get over this addiction, and you can still use the same sentencing, I believe, and tell them, okay, well, you have to go to this rehabilitation center that is provided by the state now for a year or 2 years or whatever it takes. But prison's not the place for those kind of people. And when we do send people who are addicted to drugs to prison, they don't have any kind of drug addiction programs to help them get off the drugs. They're normally treated for the first day or two to get off their first high that they're in there. And then after that, they're kind of just expected to quit cold turkey, and that's not something that's very healthy for them, especially given some of the drugs like heroin and meth. There needs to be an actual program that helps them get off of that. And then as far as, drug possession and dealing and, intent to sell and all that kind of stuff, I don't think the mandatory minimums are way too high for that. They just need to go back, revise that, maybe even get programs set up, to help get people to realize and get them help to move out of that kind of lifestyle, to realize that there's opportunities out there for them to make money without having to sell drugs or, get involved in gangs or do any of this kind of stuff. Prisons are designed for people that are a hazard to public safety, and many people in there, because of this war on drugs, aren't necessarily a hazard toward public safety, especially the addicts. They're more of a hazard toward themselves. So that whole thing would eliminate a lot of people from the prison system. And then the other thing that I think needs to be addressed is the health care in the prison system. And that just means we need prisons in general, and whether it's taxpayers or it's privately owned prisons, they need to start getting the money together and start keeping more health care and medical staff on staff at all times, because like I said, prisons are dangerous. There's medical cases all the time in prisons, and not having the manpower to deal with them is a poor excuse. Many people are not sent to prison to die. Many are sent on, like I said, petty charges, a drug charge. They might be in there for 4 years or 5 years. They're not in there for life, and they're not in there till death. And yet, they're getting killed in these prisons. whether it's killed on the spot or killed because they don't have the medical attention they need. That's not what they're in there for. So we need to keep meeting to make sure that that especially the healthcare is well funded, because these prisoners need that healthcare. It's not fair to them to take that away from them simply because they're in prison. So, like I said, humans, they deserve it. They deserve the same healthcare as public. So, on that note, I'm going to end there. Hope that was enough information for you guys. So, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys later.